So if, like me, you're looking to add a monitor controller to your studio setup, but you don't know where to start, today we're going to go on a bit of a journey, because I've also wanted a monitor controller for the last couple of months, because whenever I'm in the studio, I use multiple speakers, and just having a monitor controller makes things much easier and much more streamlined. But truth be told, I don't know where to start myself. And I narrowed it down to a few key choices, and one of those that was always coming up top of my list was the Palmer Monicon XL. So I reached out to my buddies at Palmer and said I'd like to check one of those out. And what they ended up doing, as you can see in front of me, is they sent me the entire Monicon range. So in this video, we're going to check out everything in this range, talk about who each one is for, and together we're going to pick the right monitor controller. So the Monicon range has been part of the Palmer family for a while, and if you followed that family of items, you'll probably be familiar with the Monicon XL, because that's been there for quite a while. But recently they've brought out a few new versions, and it extends from a small version all the way up to an extra large version. So there's currently 4 items in the series. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open these boxes up and see what's inside. So I want to give a big thank you to my friends over at Palmer for sponsoring this video and sending me this pile of Monicons to check out for this video. So first up, we've got the Monicon S. This is the new small Monicon, and this is very, very compact. It's not as feature-packed as some of the bigger ones, as you're about to see, but that's okay, because depending on your individual needs and your uses, this might even be the one for you. So there is the Monicon S. Next in the line, we've got the Monicon M. This is obviously the medium-sized one. So what you will notice as we're unboxing these is that as we go up the series, there are more and more features added. So as a general rule, depending on your own use case and your own setup, you might need different features and different things for your own needs. So that is the Monicon M. Then we've got the Monicon L, which is the large one. So this obviously now is getting into bigger territories. This one actually has its own power supply now, because it has a bunch of additional things that can't be done passively. These two are completely passive, which means you don't need external power for them. But the L does require external power, which Palmer do provide. So there is the Monicon L. And I'm actually going to struggle to fit all those into the camera shot. And then finally, the one that I think is going to be the best fit for me, the Monicon XL. Now, I think this is going to be the best fit for me just because of the feature set. It does a bunch of things that are very useful for me, such as the ability to run 2 sets of speakers and a sub that you can switch in and out between the speakers. My current setup, which I'll show you in a moment, doesn't give me much flexibility with my subwoofer, and this item will give me the flexibility that I do actually require. So once again, this one is definitely not passive because it's quite a big unit. So this one also has external power. And there it is, the XL. So those are the 4 units. I've even adjusted my camera to try and fit them all in, but the XL is quite big, so I can't actually fit them all in. So that's the XL, and as you can see, that's significantly bigger than the L, the S, or the M. So first things first, who are these units actually for? So let's start with the S. This is obviously the smallest one in the series, and this really has 2 main functions. We've got a mono summing switch and a volume control. This has very limited connectivity. As you can see, it just has a stereo in and a stereo out on the rear, which are RCA style jacks. And that is it. There's no headphones, there's no additional in or out, there's nothing else. That's just really tiny, and you can even fit it into your shirt pocket if you want. Now, this one is a very cool idea, and for someone who is traveling a lot or setting up a system where perhaps maybe your interface is nowhere near your desk and you just need a simple way to control the volume of your monitors, this is pretty invaluable. And this is also not super expensive. So if you're getting into the world of monitor controls and you just want something really simple, it's really hard to beat that for that price. There are some links to all of these down below in the description as well. So if you want to check these out yourself, you can go down there and hit some of those links. So yeah, very cool. Not what I need in a monitor controller, but I really like where Palmer have gone with this. So then we have the Monicon M. Now this is the medium one. This is a bit bigger than the S, as you can see from the size difference, but it has some of the same features, which is the volume control and the mono button. The mono button sums your stereo out into a mono out, great for checking mix compatibility on a mono system. But then we also have the addition of a dim switch and a mute switch. Now these control the output. So the dim switch will just drop the output level by a predetermined amount. So if you're playing loud and then you want to just tone back a bit, you can hit that and it'll just drop the volume a bit. And the mute switch, as the name suggests, will mute the output. This also has different in and out on the back. So now we've gone to XLR jack combi inputs and XLR outs, but we've also got these mini headphone jack stereo ins and outs as well. So very useful if you're using an interface or studio monitors that use jack or XLR outputs, like most tend to do these days. This is a very useful one. And personally for me, if I was just running a single set of monitors, this is probably where I would spend my money because it literally does everything I need it to do. It's volume, mute, dim, and mono. Pretty good if you're just running a simple setup. And then we have the Monicon L. Now this is where we start to get into more complex setups because as you can see, there's a lot more features on there. Now to start with, we've got a lot more connectivity on the rear. So we've got stereo inputs, which is a jack XLR combi, which is very handy. We've also got an auxiliary stereo in and a mono in. So you can plug external things in like a CD player or an iPad or an iPod or something that you want to monitor through your speakers but not necessarily run through your interface. You can also do that. Then we've got two stereo outputs, which are XLRs, and a single output here, which is a mono output, perfect for linking a subwoofer. And then on the top of the unit, you can see we've got the center part, which shares all the features with the M. We've got the volume, the mono, dim, and mute switches. But now because this is an active one, not a passive one, we've also got the addition of these LED lights, which is just a nice little thing so you can see what you've got turned on. We've got 3 buttons here for selecting your monitors. Now you can actually push all these buttons down at once or have them out like so. So that means you can actually run 2 sets of monitors at the same time. Or the way that I would use this would be to have a subwoofer on 3, which is engaged, and then switch between monitor set 1 and 2 with the sub. So that's really useful because you can blend between the two. We've got an auxiliary volume and the option to select the auxiliary input, or you can select the stereo input. And there's also a Bluetooth pairing option here, which links in with the auxiliary. So again, you can use your phone to pair Bluetooth and play stuff back through the speakers that way. This one also has a headphone out, which you can control here. And you can also then set the pre-fader level for the main and the auxiliary as well. So that's very useful because you can choose what to send to the headphone bus also. Then, as we go up in the feature set, we end up on the XL, which is all surprisingly light, I might say. I was quite surprised actually. I thought that was going to be much heavier. The XL is everything you could ever possibly need from a monitor controller and more. And that's why I like this, because this really appeals to my setup. So we've got a lot of features here. So connectivity wise, we've got way more going on here, as you can see. There's an entire plethora of things to plug in. So we've got balanced inputs here. We've got input 1, input 2, which is stereo pairs. This is where you'll connect the audio source. So for me, the left and right of my interface are going to go into input 1 left and right. That's going to feed a stereo signal to this. I could then connect a second stereo source if I want. Then I've also got input 3, which is my auxiliary, either a stereo RCA or a headphone jack, or an SPDIF input for anything digital. So that's pretty cool, because that's something that is not included on any of the other units. Then we've got the output section, which is a little bit more complicated. We've got balanced outputs here, 1, 2, 3, all stereo pairs. Each one has a gain control, which is very useful because you can gain match the speakers this way as well. So that's going to be very handy for me because I'm running multiple monitors. I'm going to be having a pair of monitors into 1 and a pair of monitors into 2. You can go stereo out of 3, or you can use this sum output to connect a subwoofer, which is exactly how I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a sub in 3. You've also got some unbalanced line outs as well if you want. There's a main stereo out and a Q stereo out, just in case you need to feed any signals to any other pieces of gear as well. And then we come back to the top of the unit. So again, more complicated because there's a lot more going on, but there's a lot of visual things, and that's something that also appeals to me. Now, first of all, we've got this bottom part here. We've still got our volume control in the center. We've got a mute switch, a mono switch, and our dim switch, same as all the other units. The dim switch on this is very cool because we have this attenuation amount. So I can go from -6 down to -30, so I can really fine tune just how much I want that to dip off. I also like these bigger buttons just because sometimes when you're in the middle of doing something, especially mixing, you don't necessarily want to be looking around for small buttons. So the ability to just kind of hit a big button is quite nice. You also have a talkback mic, which is right there, and you can control the level of the talkback mic. I don't know how much I'll use that feature, but it's useful to have in the event that I will ever need it. We have 2 headphone buses on this one, both with the ability to switch between Q and main and a volume control for each one. Now that input section I told you about, where there's 2 main stereo inputs and an auxiliary, are controlled with these buttons, input 1, 2, and 3. But the auxiliary section also has its own volume. So if I plug in my iPad, for instance, to play music back through my studio monitors, I can control how much that's going through, and I can also switch between auxiliary and SPDIF this way. Here we have our outputs, same as the large. 3 is going to be my sub, so that's always going to be on, and then I'm going to bank between 1 and 2 for my 2 monitor types. I've also got a Q-Mix output here, and the source of the input for the Q-Mix. So I can either have this set to main, which will just basically take everything I feed in and feed it to the headphones, or I can select, for instance, 1, which would be my interface. That'll send those to the Q-Mix and the headphones, 2 being whatever else I choose to plug in, and so on. We also have these meters in the middle here. So you've got your left and right, which is just your stereo signal. But then we also have this correlation meter in the middle here. And this is very useful if you're checking your mixes in mono, because this is going to give you all the information you need about whether your mix is going to translate to mono. And that's very important because there's nothing worse than putting your mix into mono and hearing everything disappear. So this meter is actually going to be a useful guide when you are mixing, because it's also just going to give you those, little bits of information you require to know your mix is going to translate once you take it outside the room. So now that we've gone through all the different Monicon options, I'm going to show you my studio setup and what that looks like and how I'm going to be using this in my own rig. So first of all, this is the alternate view of what you're currently looking at. So that's the camera that I'm currently talking into. And there are all the Monicons on the desk. Now I'm using a twin monitor setup. So my main studio monitors are these Kali Audio IN5 monitors. I've got one either side, like so. That one's a little bit obscured by a plant. And those are the main monitors that I use for 90% of things that I do. I always like to have a second set of monitors just to reference against. Even though I use the Kali Audios for like 90% of everything I do find it useful to have a secondary reference, and that's where these little things come in. The IK Multimedia iLoud Micro Monitor Pro. Again, one either side of the desk. So these are really cool little monitors that you can actually assign different profiles of other speakers to as well. That's why I find them quite useful, because I can basically make them sound like other things. So great, again, for cross-referencing mixes on different systems. Those go hand in hand with my Kalis, and they make up my monitor rig. Under the desk, I also have this Kali Audio subwoofer. Now, currently, the way that I've got this set up is that the Kali Audio subwoofer is only working with the Kali Audio monitors, because the monitors are going into the stereo in of the subwoofer, and the stereo out of the subwoofer is going into my interface, which I should also show you, which is this Audient Evo 16. And this is a great interface, and it does actually have a button here that you can assign for a secondary pair of speakers. So what this does is when that light is off, it's the Kali Audio speakers with the sub, and when that light is on, it's the IK multimedia speakers here. But what I really want is the ability to pair the sub also with the IK speakers, and that's where the Monicon comes in. So I'm going to plug the Monicon in now, and then I'll show you how I'm using that with my full monitor setup. All right, so the Monicon XL is all plugged in, and I did check it and everything does work, thankfully. So it's currently in this position on my desk. Whether or not it's going to stay here, I don't know yet. I might end up moving it at some point. Maybe I'll put it like up here somewhere and clear out some of the clutter. But for now, it's just going to live here because that's the best place for it. So on the rear of the unit, here's how I've got this thing connected. So these two cables here are feeding or being fed from the output of my interface, which is my Audient Evo 16. So the two outputs on this are going to those two cables right there. Those are input 1. Then we have the monitor outputs. So these two blue cables are feeding the Kali Audio speakers, the IN5s. These two green cables are feeding the IK multimedia speakers. And then this black cable here is feeding the Kali Audio subwoofer that is under the desk. So the cool thing with the XL is that you can have multiple outputs on at the same time. So you can see I've currently got 1 and 3 switched on, which is the Kali Audio speakers and the sub. But I could turn the sub off if I wanted, or I could have output 2 on, which is just the IK speakers. That's pretty cool. You've also got the multiple input sources that you can have on. I'm currently only running 1, but I probably will connect something else at some point. So I'm just gonna play some music now and show you some of the different features you can do with this. So I'm gonna play a track from my band, Forever Vendetta. So this is one of our songs. Please check it out. There's a link in the description if you like what you hear. So the track is currently playing, but there's no sound coming out because I haven't selected an output source. So if I press 1, you're now hearing the sound from the Kali Audio speakers. If I press 2, you're now hearing the IK speakers together with the Kali Audios. Take 1 off, that's just the IK. Back to the Kali. Bring in the sub. You can't really hear the sub very clearly on this camera, but if I turn the Kalis off and I turn the volume up, that's the sub you're hearing now. I can also dim and choose how much I want to dim by. Mute, so the audio is still playing but there's no sound. Or sum it to mono. So yeah, it all works. It does exactly what I need it to, and it sounds great. So a big thank you to my friends over at Palmer for sending over the Monicon series for me to check out. I hope that in running through all of these things, it's demystified it for some of you guys. It's definitely helped me in my decision making about what I want from a monitor controller. For me, the ability to switch a sub on and off with different monitors is so useful. So that alone is why the Monicon XL kind of spoke to me. But I could also do that with the Monicon L if I wanted to. There's just something about the XL with the bigger buttons, and everything just kind of feels a bit more spacious. The buttons on here are quite small, which is fine if you're, you know, working on a small desk, whatever. That's perfectly fine. But I just like the fact that the buttons are a bit bigger on this one, so I can just kind of, you know, hit them without thinking too much about it. If you've tried any of the Monicon series, I'd love to hear your opinions on it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think and what you look for in a monitor controller. Big thanks to my friends over at Palmer once again for sending these over and sponsoring this video today. There's some links down below in the description where you can check out all of these products. I'm going to have some fun with this now. I've got to dial in some of the levels a bit because the sub feels a bit loud when it kicks in, but that's a job for another day. That's the gain controls on the rear. So I'm about to go down that rabbit hole. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And as I said, Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the Monicon series, if you've checked any of them out, or what you look for in a monitor controller. And I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you so much for watching as always.